Farmworker families in the Salinas and Pájaro valleys are overcoming tremendous odds in their struggle to improve their living conditions. This is the story of how the Center for Community Advocacy is helping farm workers help themselves. The Salinas and Pájaro valleys are home to a more than $3 billion agricultural industry. This place that John Steinbeck immortalized in The Grapes of Wrath and The Long Valley helps feed millions of people. This land is the source of more than 50% of this country's lettuce, broccoli, cauliflower, artichokes, and strawberries. But for some farm workers, trying to provide a safe home for themselves and their families, this soil can also yield a harvest of despair. In the worst cases, farm workers have been found living in caves or lean-tos such as these dug into a North Monterey County hillside, which are perhaps the most appalling example of what some must go through to provide shelter for themselves. In 1992, dozens of migrant workers were discovered living in these squalid conditions. Lacking running water, toilets, and electricity, they were found using nearby irrigation water to bathe and drink from. The caves made local and national headlines.
Health Department inspectors were back out for the second day, documenting the number of tents and caves and the unhealthy conditions.
Lidia Villarreal is a deputy district attorney and the founder of the Center for Community Advocacy. Another tragedy that had happened more than 10 years ago had a profound impact on her life.
I was watching the news one night, and a story came on about a family whose unit had exploded. There had been a gas explosion, and the mother and her 9-month-old baby had died in the fire. I was just really struck by the tragedy of the mom, and I went and I sat in the dark with my 9-month-old son, and just felt very badly about what that woman went through, and that she had to go through that.
Lidia wanted to do something to help farm workers take more control of their lives, and the Center for Community Advocacy was born.
I started working with Sabino Lopez, and we developed a program where we would go out and educate folks about their rights and say, these are your rights, and if you've got a problem, then you take responsibility for that problem, and you take responsibility for how you're going to deal with that problem.
CCA has taken on a formidable task. Dangerous farm worker dwellings are not just confined to caves. Farm workers often have to resort to converted barns or sheds for shelter. This illegal camp was discovered in the town of Pájaro. There were hundreds of fire and health code violations. Sabino Lopez is a former farm worker and now CCA's deputy director and lead farm worker trainer. When he tours farm worker housing sites, he discovers many dangerous situations.
Bueno, ahorita las familias encuentran el problema de que este campo puede ser cerrado.
Right now, families face the problem that this camp could be closed. They could be turned out on the street at any time without a roof. It's bad, but at least now they have a roof. So right now what the families can do is organize, get together to look for a solution to the problem.
Often the only alternative to these dangerous illegal dwellings are the aging farm labor camps and deteriorating trailer parks found throughout the Salinas and Pájaro valleys. These mostly run-down camps are home to thousands of farm worker men, women, and children. The children often have no safe place to play. These so-called legal camps can be as dangerous as the illegal ones. Many of these labor camps date back to the early 1940s. Some were built as temporary seasonal quarters for the foreign labor that was imported through the Bracero program. These same temporary units, built to house single men, are still being used today as permanent housing for families. At the Campora camp in Soledad, the landlord failed to pay the utility bills, despite collecting $500 a month per unit in rent. As a result, the water and power were cut off to over 40 families living here.
Here were the tenants, over 40 families without water, without electricity, unable to bathe their children, their food spoiling, and having to use the fields for a bathroom. This is where the health problems of farm workers often begin: food and water contamination and lack of adequate sewage.
Here at the Mercado camp in Greenfield, Fertilizers, nitrates, and pesticides contaminated the drinking water for months. It forced the families of the Mercado camp to drive into town to buy water to drink and wash. All the while, the families were paying as much as $600 a month in rent.
Substandard housing is a public health issue because substandard housing creates conditions that cause sickness and disease in people. Therefore, efforts to improve the housing of the community improves the health status of that community.
On July 5, 1991, 6 families living in the Kent's Court camp outside Watsonville were left homeless when a fire fueled by garbage and debris destroyed their dilapidated homes. CCA filed suit on behalf of the 33 residents, and every family received some compensation for their losses. One of the families burned out of their home, the Moreno family, was relocated to another housing project. Tragically, a year and a half later, Isabel Moreno and her 4 children perished in a fire caused by a faulty wall heater in their new home. Who are these families that harvest the food that ends up on your dinner table? CCA clients live in the Salinas and Pájaro valleys. Most are immigrants from Mexico seeking a better life for their families. They come to the Salinas and Pájaro valleys to work and to harvest the food that helps feed our nation. However, the average CCA client only earns between $8,000 to $12,000 a year. With a median income in Monterey County of $49,000 and a median income in Santa Cruz County of $61,000, this area is one of the most expensive places for farm workers to live in the country. There are documented cases of farm workers paying as much as 1/2 their annual income for housing that is often crowded, unsanitary, and unsafe. When these housing problems arise, most farm workers are unaware that they have any rights at all. So informing and educating farm workers about their basic right to live in decent and affordable housing is a challenging task, and CCA is taking on the challenge.
Primeramente, quiero decirles que ya nos anunciaron que el parque ya está comprado.
The most crucial part of helping farm workers help themselves is the Labor Camp Comité, or committee. CCA has now worked with over 42 comités, representing over 5,000 farm worker men, women, and children. If farm worker families ask for assistance, CCA encourages families to elect a comité comprised of labor camp tenants.
¿Qué hizo CCA?
What did CCA do? More than anything, they taught us that we have rights.
Que teníamos derechos.
They showed us how to get organized so we could fight for ourselves.
A pelear por nosotros mismos.
With the help of the CCA staff, families who once felt they had no voice are now learning how to stand up for their rights. Vanessa Vallarta is a Stanford-educated attorney. She was CCA's executive director for 6 years and is now a member of the CCA board. She has seen a big difference in the families that have begun taking charge of their lives.
I've seen several changes, particularly changes in attitude, the sense that I can act to make a difference in my life, or the sense that I don't have to take it anymore, that I can act to make my life better. That's the message that CCA brings to folks.
Okay.
Jesus Fernandez agrees. He is a member of the Comité at Pinto Lake. He says many things have changed here.
Desde que CCA entró
Since CCA started working with us, the management has paid more attention to us. Before, if we were having problems with the septic system, we'd call, and they'd ignore us. Now when we call, we just have to tell them once, and they come.
Aquí los tenemos.
The result of this empowerment is being felt at every camp where CCA is organizing and training. In the Tres Palmas trailer park, where trash piled up and draining water and sewage caused flooding and health problems, the Comité tried to negotiate with the landlord for improvements.
The landlord would do nothing for a long time. The farm workers withheld their rent for an 8-month period. Finally, the landlord agreed to sell to the farm workers. And the site is now owned by a farm worker corporation composed of the residents who live there. The Comité that we helped to organize is now the governing body of the farm worker corporation. And things have dramatically improved.
Estamos muy contentos porque ahora pues ya
We are very happy because now we are each part owners of the park. CCA made it possible for us to buy this property.
El terreno.
CCA and the comités prefer dialogue and negotiation to confrontation and litigation. This approach has garnered the respect of all segments of the community. That's why CCA's board of directors includes farm workers, growers, members of the clergy, elected officials, and community leaders. Basil Mills is a Salinas Valley grower shipper.
To me, it's very important that all of us need to do whatever we can to improve housing conditions in Monterey County.
Federico Melgoza is a former CCA board member and the first president of the Tres Palmas Cooperative Board.
Our goal is to make our comités bigger, so that the community will know us better, so that we can understand our rights, so that we can speak out and defend ourselves against discrimination.
Mike Fletcher is a private developer and one of the founding members of CCA's board of directors.
There is nobody in this county or any other county that could look at the conditions that you've seen today and not say, hey, we got a problem, we better do something about it. So we need to solve it. We need to solve it locally.
Congressman Sam Farr is an honorary CCA board member.
The role CCA plays is critical because you have the conflict of the land, which produces this abundant agriculture, and the land that attracts the tourism. And CCA plays this wonderful role of being able to not only mediate the conflicts of land use, but also to educate people how to get access to housing, how to build the housing, how to do self-help, how to manage housing once you're in it.
Bob Nielsen is a grower attorney and board member of CCA.
The bottom line is that CCA's approach works. And it works because it provides people who are motivated and want to do something about their poor housing conditions. It provides them with the ability to combine their energies with the tools and the resources that the law has there. And as a result of that combination, people are able to achieve results. They're able to get the housing they deserve at a price that they can afford.
However, the struggle toward empowerment does not end with the board or the comités. The comités from the various labor camps have joined together to form a coalition called VIVA, the Spanish acronym for Viviendas para Inquilinos del Valle Aliado, Valley Housing Alliance.
Vamos a empezar con la junta el día de hoy de VIVA. No estamos solos, no somos...
We are not alone. We're not just one tenant committee working for our own homes. We are all the committees working together as VIVA, a team to make our voices heard so that the community will recognize our problems and help us find solutions.
Y eso fue lo que hicimos.
VIVA and CCA have also worked together to promote the construction of new affordable housing in Monterey and Santa Cruz counties. With the help of Sabino Lopez, Marta and Samuel Rodriguez were able to negotiate with their landlord to make much-needed improvements in their home.
Básicamente no teníamos sink.
Basically, we had no sink. They put in a new sink and a vent over our stove.
However, like many farm worker families, the Rodriguezes and their 4 children dreamed of owning their own home, one with enough room for everyone.
Here we are, building our own home. Thanks to CCA and all the VIVA comités, our dreams have come true.
Today, the Rodriguez's dream of home ownership is becoming a reality at Morocojo, a new farm worker housing development for over 300 families, the largest development of its kind in rural California.
Somos 13 familias y es una ayuda mutua.
We are families helping each other to build these houses.
Nuestras casas. No sabíamos nada de construcción.
We didn't know a thing about construction, but the supervisor is teaching us how to do it.
But it almost didn't happen. When county approval for Morocojo was challenged in its initial stages, VIVA and its network of farm worker comités mobilized over 300 families to demand that the development be approved.
This is people taking ownership of their own lives, collaborating with other people that have the skills, and then having that wonderful sense of, we built this. This is our neighborhood. This is our homes. You know, we didn't just buy into this. This is done with our own hands. What a marvelous kind of sense of accomplishment. We will extend our arms toward these homes as the ancient sign of your blessing, and ask that you make these homes into a community, and this community into a society, in which not only are those who live here blessed with your presence, but they themselves become a blessing to others.
Those who work the rich soil of the Salinas and Pájaro valleys and help to feed millions of people around the world desire and deserve to raise their families in safe, healthy living conditions. And the Center for Community Advocacy is proving that farm workers can help themselves.